Well, political analyst Khanyi Magubane joins us via video link to unpack the role and importance of election observers in South Africa's upcoming elections. A very good afternoon to you, Khanyi, and thank you for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour.
A very good afternoon to you, Liesl, as well as your viewers. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's get straight into it. Defend Our Democracy movement has now positioned itself as observers in the upcoming elections. But for those who've just tuned in, perhaps you could just speak to us about the importance of observers as we edge closer to elections.
Thank you very much. Every election in every country has its observers that are both from within the country and internationally. It is not an uncommon practice for neutral election observers to attend a country's elections to ensure that democracy is upheld, that democratic processes are upheld, but more than anything, that the electoral law of that country is upheld. We often hear about free and fair elections, and what would normally happen is that we have the results operations center in Pretoria, where all the results are tabled and they are brought to. And we know that before the official results are given, there is always an official from the IEC who gives an overview of how the elections have been run. And in fact, we have daily briefings from the IEC during election times to tell us of issues that are happening in voting station, whether it's ballot boxes that are missing, whether it's ink that has dried out, whether it's people that are being taken out before voting. There are many issues which happen during election period, and certainly on election day. And of course, all of these chaos that happen can give rise to anything happening, because whenever there's chaos, there's somebody taking advantage of those chaos. Now, political parties themselves have what they call party agents, and what party agents are representatives from political parties who are actually stationed within the voting stations, and they are able to write in the election IEC book to register. You're not allowed to wear your party's regalia inside the voting station, but certainly outside, where many political parties usually have their desks. Then you can wear whether you're ANC, EFFDA, you can identify yourself. But the main role of observers is to be a watchdog, to ensure that there is no tampering with ballot boxes, there is no tampering with the work of IEC staff. There is no tampering with any of the equipment that needs to be taken to each and every voting district and voting station. So these mechanisms are very important so that at the end of the day, we can have elections that are credible, but most importantly, uphold our constitutional democracy.
Khanyi, thank you for those sentiments, because at this point we have to look at the difference between domestic and international observers. And at this point, do you think domestic observers are given enough credit for their work or voice by the IEC compared to the international observers?
Well, they both play a very different role. It's important to have domestic observers, because those are the ones that are represented by NGOs, Defend Our Democracy, like they've just done today. And you have those within South Africa that are vested in the upholding of democracy. And the international observers themselves, they look at it from a global perspective. As South Africa is a democracy, it's important that we fit within democratic processes that are upheld across the world. So that's very important for us, Liesl, to have elections that are both credible internally and internationally.
Khanyi, how can the two different kinds of observer missions complement each other? Should they be coordinated of sorts? And as we look at the composition and the function of these observer missions, how does gender play a role in making sure that those aspects are adhered to as we look at the democratic processes at large?
Well, first of all, I think that what's most important is to look at the representation of South Africans first and foremost, because we are the ones that are having these elections. So whether you have the UN or whether you have any other international organization bringing through election observers, for me, it's most important that domestically we do have the presence of women, that we do have the presence of the youth, that we do have the presence of the elderly, who are able to play that watchdog, process. Because when it comes to international observers, they are also acting within diplomatic rules. So they can't interfere in our work. But for instance, a party agent representing a political party can lodge a complaint immediately with their political party to say, I'm at such and such voting station. This is what I've observed, and those call centers that exist within that system, because within every political party, there's a call center that's set up, that's active to take calls from party agents that are stationed across the country. And so matters are able to be addressed quicker when we have a strong presence of election observers. And so that's why, for me, it's important for us to strengthen local democracy first and foremost, and then it is rubber stamped by our international observers who are observing from international standards. Whether you have American elections, South African elections, any country that sees itself as a democracy has certain particular things that it has to tick off. There has to be no interference with the work of the IEC. The results that are counted, you can't have ballot boxes coming in from the outside. That's why they lock the voting stations at 9 o'clock to ensure that nobody is able to get out and nobody is able to get in. Inside is only IEC staff and all the party agents. Such things are important and critical to ensure that our elections are credible.
Khanyi, let me ask you one more question. Let's see if we can conclude this conversation. At this point, or from your vantage point, are there any risks of observer missions affecting the elections or democratic development in the country negatively? And in the same breath, what concerns arise given some of the current challenges in election observations as we're speaking, edging closer to elections?
Well, there is this view that there is a threat to democracy in South Africa currently. Even in the clip that you just played now from the representative of Defend Our Democracy, we've seen Tessa Dooms from the Rivonia Circle also speaking about, the local and international threat to democracy. And so South Africa also stands in a very dangerous place currently, where we could have elections that are different from any other, because for the first time this year, we're going to have individuals, candidates that are running for elections, and they're going to be going up and up with political parties. But also we have a very serious and real reality that we could be going into coalitions at a national level, and that could be a serious threat to our democracy if we have no political stability, because one of the biggest criticisms of coalitions are the instability and that they bring to any area where they exist, because of political parties not having sufficient legislative frameworks in terms of how to run governments from a coalition point of view. So if what has happened at a municipal or local level is anything to go by, then definitely I would assume that international observers are also keenly interested to see how South Africa is going to navigate the precipice that it finds itself in, where no political party could possibly have a majority come November 2024.
Khanyi Magubane, let's leave that conversation then. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour. Political analyst Khanyi Magubane just joining us today to unpack the role and importance of election observers in South Africa in our upcoming elections come 2024.